Started. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening once again. Welcome to Forum 3 for our International Third World Leaders Association Digital Forum series on crisis management. My name is Myles Munroe Jr. I'm the chairman of the board for the International Third World Leaders Association. And I'm excited to welcome you guys to this forum where we'll be discussing topics that involve crisis management. We're going through a global pandemic as we speak. And I think this is a great opportunity for you guys and your friends and everyone that you come into contact with to really learn how we can all prepare for and manage ourselves through crisis times. All of us experience crisis throughout our lives, and they come in different forms. They come in different parts of our lives. But I think the fundamental principles of dealing with crisis are all the same, regardless of where you are in your crisis management journey. So I want to firstly introduce you once again to the International Third World Leaders Association. Today we'll be doing that introduction via a little short video that we prepared for you. So please pay attention and watch this video.
Hi, my name is Myles Munroe Jr., and I'm the chairman of the board for the International Third World Leaders Association. Our organization was birthed to respond to and address the critical need for quality, effective leadership development and training in the emerging developing nations.
Our vision is to establish a global network of leaders from every discipline,
committed to the highest standards of excellence in leadership training, personal development,
mutual accountability, and fraternal support, implementing relevant and innovative leadership philosophy based on time-tested precepts, principles, and values.
Our mission is to influence the destiny of developing third world nations through leadership training,
personal development, supportive relationships, and global networking.
Our purpose is to provide transformational solutions
in response to the dynamic leadership needs of the emerging third world developing nations.
Our goal is to cultivate leadership commitment
to produce leaders
dedicated to the empowerment of their people,
the progressive well-being of their citizens,
and the betterment of their nation.
The strategic approach captured in the slogan coined by our founder, Dr. Myles Munroe,
was transforming followers into leaders and leaders into agents of change. Our focus is national development through transformational leadership,
transforming nations, communities from the inside out.
Join us in ushering in this new era of our organization.
We are tasked with carrying this vision forward.
And we are devoted to ensuring that we leave an unwavering legacy.
The organization that produces effective leaders
with global reach and influence.
Again, about our organization and what we do. I want to thank you guys again for joining us. If you want to hear and learn about our organization, or if you're interested in joining, you can email us. You can email us at ITWLA@bfmmm.com. That is ITWLA@bfmmm.com. Well, now I want to introduce our panel of speakers to you today. We have 3 speakers. All of them are a part of our organization currently. And I'm just going to give you a little background on each of them. Our first speaker that you will hear today and see is Mr. Charlie Masala. Charlie was born in the rural village of Vendel and Popo in South Africa. Charlie practiced in the human resource management field for over 10 years in different capacities in the corporate South Africa. He also founded a management consulting company, Zoe Business Consulting, in 2004. Under the mentorship of Dr. Myles Munroe for over 25 years, Charlie has become a renowned international conference speaker and management consultant. As a Kingdom teacher and speaker, Charlie has spoken on many global platforms and has traveled to over 35 countries around the globe, fulfilling his life purpose. Charlie currently serves as regional ambassador and board member of the International Third World Leaders Association, and he serves as the CEO of Munroe Global Africa, as well as a board member for the Myles and Ruth Munroe Foundation. As a management consultant, conference speaker, trainer, facilitator, Charlie shares insights that add substantial value to organizations. He tackles subjects such as diversity management, leadership in the transforming societies and organizations, teamwork building, building organizational brands, mentorship, employment equity, just to name a few. He's the husband of one wife, Zoe, and the father of three girls, Zoe, O'Connor, and Andisa. So let's welcome Charlie Masala to the panel. Our second speaker that you will hear is Dr. April Ripley. Dr. April is the founder and CEO of the Premier Image Incorporated, a company devoted to creating exceptional people and companies specializing in etiquette, protocol, and leadership instruction for today's ever-changing world. Driven to share her insight for exceptional living with a broader audience, Dr. Ripley has written several books: The Calling Card of Business, Success from the Inside Out, and Etiquette, a quick reference guide to basic etiquette, and her new book, Think, Innovate, Create, Sharpen your vision, find effective strategies, and maximize your influence. Dr. April Ripley is a trustee of the International Third World Leaders Association and holds diplomatic status with the United Nations through World of Life Ministries International, a non-governmental organization in special status with the United Nations Economic and Social Council. She's a member of the Protocol and Diplomacy International Protocol Officers Association, the Society for Human Resource Management, the Atlanta Council of International Relations, and World Affairs Council of Atlanta, just to name a few. Developing and training world leaders to be global agents of change is Dr. April Ripley's. It's in her DNA. Her investment in creating a blueprint for life enhancement with time-tested principles has increased her sphere of influence worldwide. Dr. April believes she is an ambassador of civility and an advocate for the positive and balanced development of a global society. And lastly, we have Mrs. Josephine Bakhuis. She's a native of the island of Curacao. After graduating in law in 1975, she functioned as a radical young criminal lawyer in the nation for 8 years. Until her retirement in 2010, she has held several important offices in the government of the Netherlands Antilles. Since 1996, she has been a trustee of the International Third World Leaders Association and presently the regional ambassador for South America and the Caribbean of our organization. At the end of 1999, she founded the Christian Democratic Political Party called ORDU, and served for 4 years as a member of the local parliament. She's the author of a book entitled Moral Leadership in the 21st Century, released in November 2015. She currently functions as the advisor to the Minister of Justice. She is a motivational speaker both locally and internationally, and engaged in the mentoring and training of emerging leaders and advisors to national leaders in different spheres of society. So I give you Mrs. Josephine Bakhuis. So I want to thank everyone once again for joining us. As you can see, we have a dynamic panel of speakers that will be joining us today. I'm excited for what you guys are going to experience, what you're going to learn. Remember that if you have a question, please submit your question in the question and answer box available to you on your screen. Try not to put your questions in the chat box. We just want you to use the chat for you to communicate with other participants. But if you have a question for us and the speakers, please submit them through the question and answer box, and we'll get to those later on in our question and answer period. So what's going to happen now is each of our speakers are going to tackle our segment of topics for today. Once again, our theme is crisis management, and we're going through the different types of crisis, stages of crisis, and the things that you can experience before, during, and after a crisis. And we want to give you good principles and life applications that you can use in your journey through whatever point you are in your crisis period right now. So without any further ado, I want to introduce, welcome, I should say, our first speaker, Mr. Charlie Masala. He's hailing all the way from South Africa. This is just the beauty of technology that we have. And Charlie, I want to welcome you to the screen, sir. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Technology, technology, technology. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. You know, ITWLA, it's a global organization, so it's bound to be morning somewhere in the world or evening or whatever, but I would like to greet you from the beautiful country of South Africa. And also to the chairman of the ITWLA, the International Third World Leaders Association, Myles Munroe Jr. I would like to also give you a special welcome, together with our panelists who are joining us this morning or this day. My topic that I was given, I am to talk about the positives and the negatives of, effects of crisis, as it has already been defined in the previous, episodes, episodes that have passed. Crises have been defined, but I would like to define it again, just for us to take off from somewhere today. A crisis is defined as an event or circumstance or situation affecting you or your environment over which you have no direct cause or control or responsibility. You know, at times, crisis really, it causes you to make intense decisions, and also it forces you to decide quickly, because there's no really time. Because most of the time, crisis comes when we least expect it. So, but my job today really is to talk about what, the positives and the negatives of crisis. And there is a book which is recommended, and this book is written by Dr. Myles Munroe. It's called Overcoming Crisis. I would like to recommend that book because it's a book which have helped me in the crisis that I have been through in my own life. But I would like to remind you that there is a promise, and God has given us a promise, and this promise is found in the book of Ecclesiastes 3 from verse 1, and it says that seasons and times will always come in our lives. There's a time for everything. There's a time for a good time. There's time for crisis. So crisis is not going to be discriminating. So as long as you are alive, there will be a time in your life where you come across a crisis. I take it like, storms. It's like storms of life. Storms in our lives, are always moving around. And everyone who is alive will go through a storm or a crisis. No one is immune to these storms. And as you're listening to me today, it's either you are in a crisis or a storm, or you have just come out of the storm, or you are headed to the storm. So all of us will have our fair shares of this of these storms and crises of life. So let's look at the negative effects of crisis. When crisis comes, obviously they are, it leaves certain things in our, deposits certain things in our own psyche. It deposits a lot in our own arrangements of how we are, of things that we are used and how we are used to live our lives. Because when crisis hits, everything changes. And the first thing that I would like to highlight, which we face as we go through crisis, which is a negative effect of crisis, is fear. When you go through crisis, you will definitely gonna feel the fear. But as I always say, if you have two women who go to maternity ward and they are going to give birth, you're gonna have two screams in the hospital ward. But these women, let's say one of them have been through, training, the other one haven't been through training. What you're gonna hear from the delivery room is two types of screams. There's a scream from the one who went to the class and the one who didn't go to the class. The one who went to the prenatal class, obviously that scream is a scream of hope. While the one who didn't go to the class is also screaming, but the scream is of fear because they feel like they're gonna die. But every crisis that we're gonna go through, we have been promised that we'll go through those crises and will come out alive. And number two, that you will experience as you go through crisis, trauma. And most of these different things that people are going to experience as you go through crisis are really things that most of us have been through even now during COVID-19. The other one is depression. The other one is despair. I only have 15 minutes, so I'm gonna rush a little bit. The other one is frustration. It's very frustrating to be in a crisis situation. And we've seen it through lockdown where you can't go anywhere, you wanna do this and that, and you can't do it. It brings so much frustration. The other one is anxiety. People become anxious. So when you go through these things, they are not really coming to kill you, but they are coming, in your life. And as they come in your life, they definitely would leave you a better person. But as you go through that stage of anxiety, better have hope that God is there to take us through to the next stages of our lives. The other one is loneliness. People get lonely, through crisis. I had two crises in my life. The first one was when I lost my mentor, Dr. Myles Munroe, who I have, spent over 2 decades with. It was a very terrible, feeling and situation that I had to go through in my life, and I'm not too sure there will be another one which will surpass that, because as you go through this, stages of life, and you feel lonely, and you don't have so many people that you can relate your problem with. Loneliness is guaranteed in crisis. Number 8, you will feel abandoned. That sense of abandonment you feel in a crisis. And of course, this produces worry. And as kingdom citizens, that we are told not to worry about anything because God is taking care of our needs. And the other one is hopelessness, sense of loss, sense of death. Sometimes when you're in a crisis, you feel like that is gonna be that's gonna be it. You're gonna die in this situation. But it doesn't always, crisis doesn't always result to death, even though death is also possible in crisis. And we got to expect, these negative effects of crisis. And if you look even in the lives of the apostles, more than 13 of them, I think about 14 of them were actually killed. They were martyred. So as you follow your purpose and as you follow your dreams, you're going to have sometimes to pay for it. Sometimes we pay with our own lives. It is part of the process. And of course, some of the negative effects of crisis is that there is abuse. We have experienced a high level of abuse in our communities as South Africa, as we're going through the time of lockdown. A lot of domestic violence has been reported, and these are serious problems that we still even face now, because partners have been, who were not used to be together all the time, now are forced to be in one house. They are forced to be together 24/7, and they frustrate each other. And the results we saw, people fighting their spouses. And of course, we saw crime goes up during that time of crisis. And of course, as I said, the last one, it's domestic violence. We have seen a lot of that. But also, as we go through crisis, as we go through these things, you know, and I'm happy that we don't circle, we don't cement in these things, we go through them. But there are also, you know, positive impacts of crisis. Number one is unity. I've never seen, you know, people so united against an invisible enemy like people were united during this, you know, time of the pandemic, you know. So, and it didn't matter whether you were black or white, everybody came together, you know. So number one is unity. Two is community. We've seen communities come together, and we've seen people feel for each other. This is number three, empathy. And number four, we've seen people come together. We have seen people form solidarity funds to support each other. These are some of the things that maybe in a divided nation like our nation, South Africa, you would not see most of. But we have seen this because when people felt attacked in the crisis, they felt the need to solidify. And a lot of funds, as I said, have been raised towards this through the National Solidarity Fund that we have started. And of course, people, number five, they become human again. You know, during this time of crisis, some of the positives which came out was that people start to feel for each other, and that sense of humanity and Ubuntu, as we call it, emerged in our nation. And number six is simplicity. People start to become simple again. You know, we start to focus really on things that matters in our lives. So this is positive. And number seven is spirituality. We've seen more people becoming more and more spiritual, and you know, those who were not going to church anymore, they started going back to church because they felt that you know, the world was coming to an end. And we've seen a lot of friendships emerge through that time on through the online you know, platforms that we have. You know, and number nine is, as I go towards conclusion, you know, people start to do stuff for the common good of everyone. And number 10, we start to reprioritize, you know, from the ideological side of things to the reality side of things. You know, during that time, we're not really worried about a lot of things that we worry about. We were not worried about our good, nice cars and so on, because we realized that basically whatever we have doesn't mean much if we don't have life, because life became the priority as we were threatened by the pandemic. And of course, we all remain into a simplified life. In other words, we remain back to the things that are valuable in life. But I want to give you, as I close, you know, hope that in this negatives and positives of change, we have been promised. When Jesus left, he said, "I don't leave you alone, I leave you with the Holy Spirit." The Greek word for that is parakletos. Maybe you don't know what parakletos means, but you know what parachute is. You know, parakletos is actually, para is a prefix, which is which basically means alongside. So we do have someone in us who is going alongside with us, who is the Holy Spirit. When you're jumping up the airplane, you need another kind of a para. This is a parachute. When it's raining, you need parasol. This is umbrella. So you have we have this paraclete who is with us and who is our helper at all times. So we know that we can win through Christ who strengthens us. So some of us will make it in crisis and some of us won't make it. But the nice thing, or the good part, is that they still, if you don't make it here, they still paradise. It's a place where you have someone who's going along with you, you know, in your danger, as paradise is about. So we have hope and a future. Jeremiah 29:11, we have a hope and a future, so don't be scared. Just take para with you. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Wow, awesome, Charlie. Thank you very much. Solid closing as well. I think we learned a little bit of a few languages, and just knowing that, if we don't have the Paracletus with us, or a parachute, at the end of the day, we could end up in paradise. So that's always encouraging here. Thankfully enough, I'm able to experience paradise while even here on Earth, because I'm in the Bahamas. But I won't tease you guys too much, because we do have a lot of people joining us, and I want to welcome you guys once again. And we'll be moving right along to our second speaker, Mrs. April Ripley. And April will be speaking to us today on how crisis can also provide opportunities for us. So April.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you everyone for joining. What can we say to our chairman, Mr. Myles Munroe Jr.? Thank you for providing this platform to really address what many of us are experiencing, not just where we live, but literally around the world, as this pandemic has impacted every nation and unfortunately made a history of its own. But I do believe today, along with my panelists, who will share with you information that will not only educate you, but also inspire you to aspire to the greatness that lies within each of you. So I'd like to share my topic today is opportunity in crisis, the paradox. Because oftentimes we look at crisis and think, how is there an opportunity in crisis? Well, let's see. So Merriam-Webster defines opportunity as a favorable juncture of circumstances, that there's a good chance for advancement or progress. Whereas crisis is looked at as a turning point, a decisive moment, and a critical phase. And I think all of us today would agree that we are in a critical phase, not only in our nations, not only in the world, but even in our own personal lives. We've often heard that in the Chinese language, there is no word for crisis. It's actually the word opportunity. So let's talk a little bit more about it. And I love it because Charlie did mention Dr. Munroe's book, Overcoming Crisis. Yes, everyone who's listening should purchase his book, because one of the things he shares in this book about overcoming crisis is that it's all about perspective, how we see the world, what lens we're looking through. And so I love it because yes, I'm wearing my blue shades, Myles Jr., we're trying to feel like we're at the Bahamas in paradise, but it's about perspective and how we see the world, because we all see the world through our own lens. So let's talk about the spec in perspective, because it actually comes from a Greek word meaning vision. So the first is S, which means we need to shift our thinking. Albert Einstein said this. He says, the world we've created is a product of our thinking, and it can't be changed without changing our thinking. And where does our thinking come from? Well, it comes from belief systems, things we've been taught, things we've accepted, but even more so, thinking is a matter of our perspective. So I look at where we are now, and there's a wise king named Solomon, still the wisest, the richest man historically. And he said this in the 23rd chapter and the 7th verse of his writing. He says, for as a man thinks in his heart, so is he in behavior. So we have to change how we see things in order to change the actions and the responses that we'll have. Now, I know we're sitting here thinking, well, there's so much happening right now, I really don't even know where to begin. And I think in the first few months of when this happened, we were all really in shock, right? It's kind of like if you've ever seen a deer or antelope cross the road and you're driving, when they see your headlights, the first thing they do is stop. And you're thinking, don't stop and stare, get moving. But for them, it's the shock. And so we all experience this shock initially. But if we look historically, we'll see that a lot of innovation in what we call, I'm thinking of the word, inventions happen in times of crisis. For my sports fans, basketball was invented, 1894, right? LeBron wasn't here yet, Myles Jr., but he was on his way. He was on his way. But even Heinz ketchup, something as simple as tomato sauce, came in the middle of a crisis that had to do with food preservation. Now you may say, April, why are you sharing these ideas? Because some people that are on, I believe on the Zoom, have been thinking about ideas, but you're wondering, is this the right time to do it? Absolutely. Even if you're in the food industry, what can you do to make the service better? What can you do within the parameters of safety? We look at 1930. Now this I found very interesting, the chocolate chip cookie. Now I know the chocolate chip cookie seems very normal, but you know it happened by accident. So the woman who was making this cookie was looking for baker's chocolate. She ran out, had a chocolate bar and said, okay, well, I'll just make do, be resourceful, put the little pieces of chocolate in this cookie and bake them. But guess what happened? The chocolate didn't melt, but it created such a fervor and such a fever. We're all loving chocolate chip cookies to this day. In 1906, Madam C.J. Walker here in the United States became the first African-American woman millionaire. And what did she do? Develop a product specifically for African-American hair. But not just that she developed it, she actually utilized, and some reports will say different, but there were some other people who were selling Black hair care products, but she took it and created a system of distribution, almost like franchising, and she allowed different representatives to go door to door to begin selling these products. So she took her idea, but she leveraged it by having other people be a part of it. And of course, she rewarded them greatly, but in finance. But I'm sharing these examples with you to help spark something, to show you that there is opportunity in crisis. The first mobile phone. Oh my goodness, where would we be without the mobile phone? 1973, Motorola, the first mobile phone. Now, I'm sure I remember when I was in college, my part-time job, yes, because I needed to have some funds when you're in college, right? I went, and my job was to actually put together these mobile phones. And I'll tell you, they weren't nice and pretty and small the way they are now. They were big bags that you actually carried around, like a little attaché case. But if we look now at where mobile phones have gone, same system of how it was developed and same purpose, but each year it's like, how can we make this smaller, or how can we make it do anything? Texts, emails, documents, all these things still in the same frame of idea, but yet someone took that and said, okay, we can add this, we can add this, we could take this away. And so maybe you have an idea that just needs to be kind of polished a little bit, maybe something added to or taken from. And then this platform that we're on today, no one could argue that the telemarketing, teleconferencing of Zoom in 2011, I'm sure Mr. Wan had no idea the impact and the necessity that would lead to it. What we have today, we're in 2020. He invented this in 2011, but we are certainly looking back to say he probably didn't anticipate how popular and necessary this platform would be. Because sometimes we can come up with ideas and we think, wow, I have this idea, but how long will it take to get here? Like, I don't see the benefits right away. Sometimes your idea is not just for the time you're in, but it's preparing you for a time that's to come. We'll talk about that in a moment. But we have to make sure that we keep our core. And this is so important. Another book by Dr. Myles Munroe, The Power of Character and Leadership. I will never forget that 2013 Global Leadership Forum in beautiful Bahamas, where he shared that the biggest thing that will come into the future for leaders as we become more successful, as things begin to happen at a rapid pace, is to make sure that we keep our character intact, our core of integrity, our morals, our convictions, and our values. This is so important. Eleanor Roosevelt, who was humanitarian global and did a lot of work for the Human Declaration of Rights with the United Nations, said this: great minds discuss ideas, average people discuss events, small minds discuss people. So great minds discuss ideas. See, even this forum that we're having today, it was the idea of our chairman and all the trustees that are part of ITWLA. We said, how can we connect globally in order to encourage, again, to inspire and empower and equip those who are dealing with issues in their life? So S is shift. Shift our mindset, shift our thinking. P is plan, because you know what? Nothing happens without a plan. So what is important about a plan? Well, a plan allows you to write your future. I like to say it's the seeds that you sow. And what I have here says present future. See, there's a lot of different shapes of seeds on the screen. And that's because each one of us are individuals and we're uniquely created by God. But in order for the seed, which is the source of our growth and development, we have to do some things to nourish it and to fertilize it. Now, most of you know that seeds don't grow in bright, sunny places. They actually grow in dark, murky, smelly places in the soil. But once the sunlight and the water begin to merge with the fertilizer, it grows into this beautiful idea, beautifulness. But here's the process. We have to educate ourselves. Now, when we first got shut in, it was like, wow, we can't go out. What can we do? And some of us might have binge watched on Netflix, catching up with things. But the seed uses time to educate itself, to develop. Take a class. Maybe some of you have been saying, you know, I wish I could have taken this class. There's so many colleges now and opportunities that are online. So you can sit in the comfort of your home and educate yourself. Reading books. You have to develop the seed that's within you. Have to refine it. You know, I have still, even though I haven't been able to travel to different places, I remember for the university, I did our first virtual protocol training. It was very interesting because we saw all these faces on screen. I had to get used to, you know, what is this like? But we have to look at it. Be sure that you invest, because also this is a time to invest. That's what the seed does. It takes time. What things do we need to be investing in? And I know Dr. Munroe shared with us so many great things, that always invest in what God made, because whatever man makes, it will always need what God made. In the midst of chaos, there is also opportunity. E is for execute. Steve Jobs, we all know him. He says this, to me, ideas are worth nothing unless executed. Because see, we have to make sure that although we develop, we get the education, we get the information even today, if we don't do anything, guess what? We don't do anything and nothing happens. So innovation is a process. We have to innovate, create, think, embrace the change. Sometimes change is not easy, but we have to embrace it. And then we have to persist. This here is the personal success equation I like to talk about. You take your gift, your passion, multiply it by those who you associate with, because yes, people you need around you who are encouraging you to do, encouraging you to be more, to say, yes, you can do it. How can I help? And that's what this forum is all about. And then the belief in yourself that you can do it. And lastly, as I close, is C, to climb. So again, we're talking about shifting our mindset. We're talking about planning, making plans for the future, because guess what? It will come. We talked about execution, and last, the climb, because success isn't just about how much money you make. It's about the difference that you make in other people's lives. Wealth never leaves the earth. And wealth, we often think of just money, but you know, there's actually 5 capitals. I don't have time for that today. But here's what we are as leaders. We adjust, we shift, we uphold, we initiate, we cultivate, we plan, execute, and we climb, because we see the opportunity in crisis.
Wow. Whoa. That is very power-packed, April, man.
No, sorry, Chuck.
You gave us a lot in such a short period of time, man. If I'm going to tell you guys now, this video is going to be made available to you. We're going to send you guys a link to this video. You're definitely going to want to watch this again. There are things that I couldn't even keep up with just now. That little formula you used just now with your gift plus your passion,
Association, yeah, who you're with, yeah, very important.
And your belief, man, that was powerful. I think a lot of people really need to take heed to that, because that's very important, especially when you're dealing with in times of crisis. One thing I always, well, I didn't always like this about crisis, because you know, as I grew and experienced different crises in my life, you know, I always thought of the negative aspects of crisis, right? The fear, the uncertainty, all of these things that are present in crisis, which is there. But it wasn't until a few years ago, maybe like 10 years ago, I started to shift my thinking in crisis and started to notice that there are a lot of opportunities in crisis. And you said something that stood out to me just now. You said that sometimes the ideas that you have aren't for the now, they're for time to come. And I think Zoom is a perfect example of that, because Zoom has been around for years, right? But it wasn't until this crisis hit that the platform of Zoom actually took off. And it was because then the environment that we were in created the perfect opportunity for Zoom to become what it's become today. And it's been around for quite a number of years. So for those of you who have who are going through this crisis and you have all of these ideas bubbling in you, get them out, execute those ideas, start working on them. They might not benefit you today, but they can benefit you in the future. And you could be the next Steve Jobs or the next Jeff Bezos, or whatever your goals are in those terms. But thank you, April. That was a very good presentation. And for those of you that have questions, any questions you have, please don't forget to submit them in the question and answer box, and we'll get to them later on in our session. So up next, we have our trustee, Ms. Josephine Bakhuis. She's going to speak to us today on how to anticipate and manage crisis successfully through strategic thinking and planning. How to anticipate and manage crisis successfully through strategic thinking and planning. Ms. Bakhuis.
Good afternoon, everybody. As a matter of fact, good morning still. It is such a great privilege to be able to share with you my thoughts and my heart this morning. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for this invitation, and to ITWLA for this opportunity. I really trust that I'll be able to share all my thoughts and my heart with you. And I will be speaking on anticipating and managing national crisis successfully through strategic thinking and planning. A nation is a community of people, and our focus in crisis management of a nation must be on the management of the needs of the people. A national crisis is a time of dreadfulness in either one, several, or all areas in the nation, which can lead to division, fragmentation of the community, and even violence and devastation. But at the same time, it is a critical, crucial time with opportunity for growth and positive changes in the nation, just as Dr. April shared with you. President J.F. Kennedy stated, out of crisis can emerge new and incredible opportunities, particularly if traditional approaches and paradigms are questioned and challenged. And Plato quoted, necessity is the mother of invention. So whenever there is a necessity for something, that will create or lead to invention. All government leaders are national leaders, but not all national leaders are in government. National leaders lead the nation from different platforms, as social, labor, business, spiritual. National leaders should know the specific purpose of their nation, link this with the fulfillment of its vision, identify the platform from which they should exercise their authority as a leader. They should understand what is happening in the present and where the nation is heading. Be engaged in the ongoing social economic development in the nation, and create a platform for their voice to be heard. I will now mention 10 points a national leader should contemplate in critical times. First, he must be burdened for the conditions of the people and not led by self-serving interests. Continually speak for the cause and righteous treatment of the people, and ensure that their needs are being met. Recognize that real expertise is not only in the government, but also lies within the people. A democratic government rules on behalf of the people. Since the word democratic comes from the Greek words demos, which means people, and kratos, which means power. So democratic, when you speak about that, you should think about the people's power that you are representing. Respectfully advise the government on how to interact with and lead the people in a transparent way, but at the same time, counteract sensational and fake news in a timely manner, speak from his or her platform to impact the national government, encourage and empower the people. Seize the opportunity to develop a close connection with various sectors, organizations, and crisis components, and use all his talents and abilities to influence, change, and offer solutions that can be applied to the nation. Identify national and community leaders in the nation in order to develop and preserve unity. Assess whether decisions made by the government are correct by analyzing if they really address and solve the physical, material, social, mental, and emotional needs of the people, and positively determine future conditions and affect future generations. In a national crisis, the main objective in strategizing is how to achieve, but not only achieve and preserve the restoration of total well-being of the people, considering equality of the people and the impact of the decisions on every area. In studying anticipation and management through strategic thinking and planning, I realized that national leaders are needed to bring calm and order. National governments are responsible for critical aspects of containment of measures, healthcare, social services, economic development, and public investment. With governmental strategies, it is a matter of balance, with the government intervening in areas where the market fails to provide a desirable outcome. The most important thing is for the government to anticipate next moves in case of the rise of any other crisis. In strategizing, all spheres of societal influence should be taken into account. Family, religion and faith, education, government and law, health and well-being, social welfare, business and economics, art, sports and entertainment, media and communications. So I would like to highlight just a few strategies and advice to the government in some of the areas of societal influence. And I will start with media and communications. Last but not least, use all means in this age, particularly the digital tools, to keep citizens well informed and have a good interaction between citizens and governments. Take proactive actions and give a crisis response that gets in front of the news. You know, media is always ahead of us. We should get in front of the news, and especially the government should, so that people will feel more secured and comfortable. Introduce and or activate existing multi-level coordination bodies that bring social partners and government representatives together, so that a fragmented crisis response is minimized. Predict, prevent, and prepare for the crisis across all domains of national security, from political, economic arenas to military ones. Strategize on how to deal with political pressure groups. We have had some quite big problems with political pressure groups in most of the nations during this particular crisis. Build higher trust levels to foresee how citizens respond to government advice in the future. So this crisis is like a stepping stone or a learning camp for us for the next crisis. Promote the participation of the society in national recovery plans. Work on healthy communication between vulnerable groups in society and the government to prevent them from feeling excluded and react with violent demonstrations and rebellion against governmental rules. When communication was unclear, no problem. The government must apologize and release concise messages to the public immediately, own up to what happened and assure it won't happen again. Make use of media and social media to speak the truth and combat the sea of disinformation and confusion. Concerning family, religion, and faith, recognize the importance of the family as the smallest but most important entity in the nation, and facilitate the building of strong families with a solid moral foundation for the children. Facilitate the continuity of religious and spiritual activities and leadership as a support to the society at large. Do not underestimate the importance of spiritual leadership and guidance in crisis. Regarding arts, sports, and entertainment, publicly recognize the importance of and invest more in healthy arts, sports, and entertainment activities, not only in times of crisis, but in good times, and especially in critical times. Guarantee that talents and abilities are being used to bring transformational messages to the society. As strategies in the area of health and well-being, I would like to state the following. Counteract a culture of procrastination and cultivate one of quick reaction and addressing of social, economic, health, fiscal, and other problems. Foster unity in the society between the people on different areas of concern. And keep health awareness. Don't lose it, not only in this time of crisis, but keep your health awareness and positive lifestyle modifications that we have developed during this crisis on a high level. Provide special care for psychological effects of isolation. Among others, long-lasting anxiety. Lots of people suffer from that. Overuse of electronic devices and overeating. Emotional and psychological consequences for all those who are forced to turn to the virtual world. Maybe to you, it is so normal to have turned to the virtual world. But to a lot of people, it has been overwhelming. It has been stressful, especially for those 60-plussers like me. Strengthen healthcare system and implement health and safety plans with equal treatment and assistance for patients of all ages, not only for those at high risk. Provide medicines at cost. The government could do that by buying bulk medicine. As for education, it is important to encourage the eagerness to learn new things and wisely invest in proper education of the people. Restore truth and morality to our educational systems. Truth and morality has to be restored. Make optimal use of developed and exposed creativity. During a time of crisis, so much has been exposed. Good things, also wrong. But so many good things and creativity, dormant and latent talents and abilities. So make optimal use of this. Continue to advance technological and problem-solving innovation and development of online learning materials. But ensure equal opportunities for students by providing internet access and digital devices for low-income families. Social welfare. Set up platforms consisting of social initiatives, volunteers and other groups that stay and work together, not only in critical times, but in and out of season. Let them stay together now and let them work together. Let there be unity among them. Establish community relief funds and other community services, offering support of recovery over time to vulnerable groups and to self-employed. They have been neglected a lot, the self-employed. Teach the society how to budget in critical times. Assist customers, protect employees, and provide critical support to the society at large. Develop a new responsible fiscal payment behavior or a fiscal payment culture. Last but certainly not least, business and economics. focus on investment and not only on reforms. Fear will have us focus on reforms, but we should focus on investment too. Develop a structural system of specific economic support measures. Review national financial management and strengthen expenditure and revenue effectiveness. Make policies to help mitigate the impact of any crisis on the public finance. Allow businesses to build wealth, free markets to run their course through enterprise, creativity, and effort based on integrity and an integer tax payment behavior. To me, this time of crisis has been a time of self-reflection. Anticipating and strategizing go hand in hand with self-reflection. It is a time of wilderness and tests. Reflection on self-esteem. How much do you esteem yourself? Self-government. Can you govern your own life? Your life principles. And I had to test all strategies against time-tested kingdom principles. Deeper transformation and change of mindset was the result thereof. I reaffirm that as kingdom leaders, we must be the salt of the earth and yeast in all the systems of the world. Encourage and empower the people to see that there are great seasons ahead when this crisis is over. Speak out for unity and harmony in the nation in spite of everything. Find and mentor emerging leaders. Work on your personal development and self-government and model a lifestyle of high moral standards. Let the love for the people be our motive behind every step we take. Remember that our leadership is based on one mandate: love God above all and our neighbor as ourselves. And then our strategies will be successful. May God bless you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Bakhuis. So relevant information, and your perspective from a national level, right? Because as we go through crisis personally or professionally, we experience crisis all the time on a national level. And I think this is a great example where a crisis is being experienced all over now. From the personal, family, and community levels to these large companies, organizations, and government level. So I think that perspective is very important, and I thank you for providing us with your expertise. And I do see similarities in what we all can use, regardless of what sector we're in our environments, in our communities. All of these, the principles that you're recommending from a government level can work on an individual level as well. And as you said, during crisis, and not even during crisis, but throughout our lives, self-governance is important, right? And how we manage ourselves and discipline ourselves during times really determine who we're going to be 10, 15, 20 years from now. So thank you very much. I'm going to show off a bit, and I just want to really say that this organization, the International Third World Leaders Association, we have it all, right? We have, if we need information from a professional level, we need information from a social level, information from a personal level, and information from government levels. We're an organization that we comprise of so many individuals from so many sectors of life. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to put this forum together, so that we can get that global perspective, where we get to hear from individuals who have experience in and are educated also in these areas, because I think it could be very beneficial to everyone and anyone that is able to listen. So thank you to each of our speakers. I think all of you really gave us a great perspective on, first of all, what are the advantages and disadvantages of crisis, which is what Charlie spoke about, and April spoke to the opportunities that are present in all crises. I think there's opportunities we can all experience. And then Ms. Bakhuis took the the strategic planning through and before crisis from a national perspective, and really lending some advice and recommendations to all governments. So if there are any government officials joining us today, I hope you took some good notes. Just remember to give Ms. Bakhuis her credit when you're using her recommendations in your governmental meetings. But now we're going to move on to our panel and question and answer period. We have all our speakers present. We have quite a number of questions. I think people are really engaging with us today. But before we do that, I do want to recognize the many countries that are joining us, well, the many places that are joining us today. We have folks from the Netherlands, from Qatar, from Cameroon, from Ohio in the US, from Johannesburg and Cape Town in South Africa, from Connecticut also in the US, from Florida and Pennsylvania in the US, from Curacao, from Belgium, from Canada, from Nigeria, from Uganda. I just want to welcome and thank all of you guys for joining in. I know it's Saturday, so a lot of us use this day to for personal time, and the fact that you're taking your time out, regardless of what time it is, wherever you are in the world, to join us, we're very appreciative. So to start, I do want, April presented a formula earlier during her presentation, and we had a number of folks that didn't quite get to see the formula like they wanted, so I wanted to give her an opportunity to just show that formula again, because even I think I'm going to steal pieces of this to use, so it's going to be a bit selfish.
Borrow. You're going to borrow. Thou shalt not, right? you certainly you can. Please excuse me. I'm advancing through it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's almost there. Oh, there it was.
All right, you could just kind of summarize it.
Oh, go over. Okay, certainly. So your gift is what you are, some people would say endowed with. It's what you came to earth with. Dr. Munroe always said, you know, it's your gift is inside, it's your seed. And you remember my sharing that a seed is just dormant. You know, I actually picked up a seed the other day that I just kind of set on the counter and just to see what happened, and nothing happened. So nothing happens with your gift, with your seed that's within you, if it just lies there and you don't do anything with it. But you have to take the gift and then have passion, because passion allows you to focus and discipline. Like when you know that you have something, even when people tell you no, you know, you're like, no, but I just feel it. I just feel it. So you need the gift and you need the passion, and you put that together. But then I have these little parentheses and I multiply it by association, because it's important to be around the right people. You know, some people call it in the right environment. Why? Because it's the environment that cultivates, right? That's also a growing word, think of seed, but it cultivates you. So if I'm, you know, when I started out, I remember, I'm going to put Dr. Rowe on the spot, but, you know, we were in a mentorship meeting and someone said, how do you get to write over 60 books? And he said, with the first one. And I didn't get that. I was like, what? So it starts with what you have now. And that's also a principle in the Bible. It's like, what do you have now to work with? And how can you develop that? And so it's what you have now, being good on that level, maximizing that gift on that level. But see, one of the things about it is the people who are around you who can help water that seed. So I remember in 2012, we were in the trustee meeting, and he says, oh yeah, I just want to announce to everyone that Miss April Ripley is working on her book. And I looked like, oh, I am. And I was kind of on the spot, but I realized that he was trying to say, no, go for it. And so it's important to have those persons in our lives. You know, people who are in leadership talk about the law of association, that you become like the people who you surround yourself with. And so that's really important too, because you can have the gift, you can have the passion, but if you don't have the right people around you, Myles Jr., who like are pushing you and saying, yeah, bro, you can do this. Come on, sis, we're in this together. And Pastor Bakhuis mentioned that when she talked about community and social welfare, is having those people around you. And then that helps the execution, right? So you have more faith. It could be, you know, again, maybe financially in execution, but then a lot of times it's just the idea. You know, I know that I've seen in my life, as you start out on this journey, it's like walking a path, that God will place people in position along the path to connect you with that help in the execution of your gift. Like this platform for all this is the third one I think you mentioned that we've had, you know, you're coming along with gift and passion with the right persons, have provided a platform in order for us to execute and to share our gifts. And then it's having that belief, that conviction within that, you know, I can do this, I'm capable, I can do all things through Christ because he gives me strength. And that is part of the success equation. That is what I call the personal success equation.
All right, thank you very much, April. I appreciate you just expanding on that a bit with your personal success equation. I think each of us have the opportunity to really apply that to our lives as we speak, as we go through this crisis, and I think it allows us to you know, really reflect, and I think Ms. Bakhuis used this a lot in her presentation as well. This gives us a time to reflect on ourselves, right, and to see where we are and what we're doing. So, you know, gift plus passion times association, your environment, where you are, and then execution, and then belief in yourself. You know, and I think it just comes from your confidence, right? And your confidence usually built during that the association period, right? Because you have folks around you who encourages you and allows you and assists you to really do better. So thank you, April. Now if you can give me the screen back, I would appreciate it. Thank you. Okay. All right. So now we have our question and answer period. So I'm just going to jump right in. I want to thank everyone once again for joining us. I see we have a few questions on how you can join our organization. If you're interested in joining our organization or finding out more information about us, send us an email at ITWLA. That's ITWLA at BFMMM.com. You send us an email, we'll send you a package with information on us and some information on how you can become a part of our organization. Okay. All right. So for the first question, I think this is a very good question. I'll give this to Ms. Bakhuis since this came up during her period, her presentation. Raymond DeLone, he says he likes the statement self-governance, and he wants to know, can you, or I assume he's asking, how can we govern ourselves? How are we able to govern ourselves? How should we govern ourselves?
We can govern ourselves when we are self-disciplined, have to discipline ourselves, live a more high moral life, wow, based on certain principles. Every life should be based on principles. What are the principles your life is based on? And what are the values that your purpose and your vision of your life, that support that? What values do you use, right? And if you are passionate for something, what is the motive behind every passion? Are your motives correct, right? Do you have confidence in yourself, or are you insecure? So only a mature person, a person who has this self-government, the government of your own life, you can govern your life, right? And as Charlie said since the beginning, it is only through Christ. So speaking about kingdom leadership now, all of this is based on kingdom principles. These kingdom principles, they support your self-government. You test every action in your life to these principles. And when you can govern your life, your own life, then you are ready to govern a city, a village, a neighborhood, a nation. So don't run and think, wow, someone told me I'm a good leader, so I will be a good government leader. No, work on your personal life and make sure that you can govern your life, govern your family, govern your children, and then you are ready to be trained, educated, equipped to govern a nation.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bakhuis. And I think that's totally true. You know, I think our success starts with ourselves, right? And how we're able to manage the different things that happen in our lives. And I think self-governance or self-discipline, self-sacrifice, all of those are key principles when it comes to dealing with maturing and developing as individuals. So thank you again. Moving on to our next question. So Emmanuel, if I say your name wrong, I apologize. Emmanuel Kokua Abolokpoi, I think. Again, let's just call him Emmanuel. Emmanuel asked, how do we deal with fear during crisis? And I know a lot of people probably have this question or are probably experiencing this right now. So I think it'd be good if we could provide some perspective on dealing with fear during a crisis. So anyone could take a stab at it.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. When we read the Bible in the book of Joshua, God is telling Joshua to go and take over the land. And this land, it's a land which, you know, there was a crisis in that land because that land was occupied. So it was not going to be a walkover. But God has given the promise. The promise is go to the land and go and seize the land. The land is yours. But then he says to Joshua, he says, have courage, be courageous. So courage is really what you need. God tells Joshua to go and have the land, and then now he says, have courage. Why? Because he knows that he's gonna need courage to be able to take the land. So fear will always come to us, but we need to know that, we need to take courage because we know that the one who is faithful and the one who has sent us out know that we need, that we need to withdraw from that courage because the courage that he expects us to draw from ourselves, he gave us that courage. So I would say that the only way really to walk through the fear and the shadow of death and fear no evil, it can only be because you know there's someone who is greater than you. So I don't know how I can advise someone who doesn't believe in God, because while you go through the shadow of death, you need someone who is bigger than you, and that is God. We can't do it in our own ingenuity or our own strength, but God is the one who will take us through. But we are to be courageous. Being courageous means that, yes, I'm fearful, but I'm still moving towards the target.
All right, thank you. Yeah, go ahead, April.
Oh, I'm sorry, Charlie. I was waiting for you to quote Madiba, right? President Nelson Mandela said that courage is not the absence of fear, but
Yes.
it's triumph over it. And he says that a brave person is not the person who doesn't feel afraid, but you just kind of purpose and say, I'm going to do it anyway. And it's that courage. And that quote really stood out for me. I remember that when I visited South Africa for the first time. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes. Thanks, April.
I think fear also is, I don't think we should avoid fear, right? I think fear is something that we should embrace. People always look at fear as a negative thing. If you aren't a bit fearful, I don't know if you're human, right? I think as humans, this is something that we experience normally, but within that fear, I think we need to just kind of have a perspective of I'm going to get through this, or I'm going to figure out a way to work my way through whatever it is that I'm experiencing or the reason this fear is present. so don't shy away from the fear. I think, you know, embrace it. And going back to April's formula, I think, you know, our association or the environment that we place ourselves in is very important. And that's in good times and bad times. If you're going through a period in your life, you know, you're experiencing a crisis or whatever, and you surround yourself with negative people, then all you're going to be getting is negative energy, negative things being said, right? And it's going to enhance that sense of fear within you. But if you put yourself around positive individuals that can encourage you, you know, you find yourself a mentor or someone that can speak life into the chaos that may be surrounding you, then it gives you, it allows you to start to develop and think of, you know, different perspectives and different ideas within that period. So your environment is very important when it comes to fear. I think fear isn't real, right? Fear is, you know, we call things, but well, in my opinion, things that we don't understand, we place a name on it. And the label that we use most times of things that we are scared to deal with or are just unaware of what's going on is we fear this. You know, we fear a lot of things that we don't understand. And I think the more experience we get, the more information we get, the more wisdom we'll be able to apply during these fearful times. So yeah, that's my response. So let's move on to the next question. Pastor Renee Lilliston, her question is, what is the main thing we take away from a crisis? What is the main thing that we take away from the crisis? I think I'll just say this quick thing, and this is something I always take away, whether it's a crisis or anything that we deal with in life, is just a constant reminder that our life happens to us in seasons, right? So if we're experiencing a crisis, the main thing that we can take away is that it won't last forever. You know, it's not going to be here for the rest of our lives. And this is just a period that we're experiencing, a season that we're going through, and we're going to get through this. So just stay the course. Anyone else want to respond?
Yes, a time of crisis is indeed a season. And our lives, actually, they are divided into seasons. So everyone should know that this season will pass and another season will come in. Well, there are some people, they believe that we are living now in the last days, and as if this is the last season of our lives. And I feel very, very, I can't say sad, but for these people, that they believe that we are living in the last season. And they're using all this COVID experience to, instead of encouraging people, you know, to live for a better season and to make good use of opportunities, to scare people and with all kinds of prophecies and all kinds of things. And that's why I encourage the kingdom leaders to let their light shine and let them be the salt of the earth in this time of crisis. And let us not be religious, but let us be spiritual. Let us not scare the people, but let us encourage them for greater seasons. And let us not change what the people believe, but let us just use what they believe in order to encourage them. And if you noticed, Mr. Chairman and everybody, in all those strategies that I mentioned, there is like, you can just read through it or listen through it. There is one line. All of those strategies are kingdom-based. They are based on the principles of the kingdom of God. Equal opportunity for everybody and transparency, unity. So you can just use it as a government, as you said just now, Chairman. And the government can use it, and when using that, realize that they are kingdom-based. And a government like the one in Nassau in Bahamas can certainly, you know, enjoy and use all those advices, because they have been really, really prayerfully taken care of. But besides that, I want to ask you to please encourage people, encourage those who are hurting, encourage and empower those who are in fear, and do not push them down. Just give them a helping hand to get up, and don't push them down, and especially not using scripture verses, prophecies, and kinds of things like that. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Awesome, awesome. Moving on to the next question. This is a very good question. So Thomas asked for it. He says, why should we, or why do we benefit from crisis? If there is a benefit in it, then why would we, I think he's trying to say, if there's benefit in it, why would we call it a crisis, right? So if there are opportunities within crisis, then is it really a crisis? Anyone want to address that?
Okay, so I think he may be talking about what I was sharing about opportunity and crisis, right? The paradox of this is a crisis, it's a time of fear, but yet there's opportunity. Unfortunately, I think we can look through human history and find that unless there's something that comes, it's almost like a collision of comfort to forward momentum, right? So until something negative happens many times, not all the time, but many times, we're just comfortable. You know, we were comfortable just going to the airport and getting on planes, but now it's happened to where we've now had to shift into this digital platform that we're on now. Again, it's perspective. I think it's about being resourceful and seeing the resourcefulness. I remember there's a story of Jesus in the Bible in Matthew where all these children were coming to him and all these people were like, oh, what do you do? And he says, you need to be like a child. And I thought, okay, well, we're a little old to be like a child. What does that mean? And I think if we look at children, they just believe they can do anything, right? They, you know, they see a fence, they're automatically, you know, Dr. Munroe would talk about when he saw the mangoes. He's like, it's on that fence over there, but let's see, I can climb this fence, I could do. So I think that crisis actually come in a way to have us to think, to shift our thinking again into how can we make this happen? It causes us to be more resourceful. You know, it first started off, everybody had a run on toilet paper and you know, paper products. And I thought, okay, that's the first step. But then we saw as it progressed, people were then going to supermarkets, and then they were realizing, wait, I need things that keep my, you know, my body clean. And so we saw this kind of ebb and flow of how things through the crisis shifted the phases of how we bought things, what things then became needs versus wants. So the benefit to me in crisis is that, again, as all the panelists have shared, that it changes our perspective of how we view not only our world, but the world around us. And someone asked the question, I think earlier, just to talk about government. You know, we see a lot of movements that started grassroots. And I'll share this really quickly. I'm in Atlanta, so for many, we've been called the birthplace of civil rights, with leaders like Dr. Martin Luther King and many of the persons who have gone on in this year, who were also part of that movement. But it didn't start, you know, in this huge nationwide, because we have our cell phones and we're able to, you know, send a group text and say, meet here and start marching. It started at the local level. And sometimes, to Pastor Bakhuis, what she was saying, we look for government to be the answer for everything. And I remember being in Bahamas at the Global when Dr. Munroe said, a government that is big enough to give you everything is a government that's big enough to take it from you. And he talked about self-governance. So we need to get more into the local level, the local locus of our decision-making, and we can make changes there in our communities that garner the attention of the government to say, how did you turn this, you know, this desert, this food desert place, this lower income with no, you know, enterprise, what did you do to make this change, where government starts to come to us for answers?
I would like to add and bring a spanner in the works. We should realize that crisis is defined by man. Crisis is a man's response to unfavorable situations that man goes through. So in God, there is no crisis. What he promised us tribulations. He says, in this world, you shall have many tribulations. But then he says, but don't worry about it because I have overcome the world. So we have defined this world crisis as a negative. It's we who have done that. But otherwise, we could say crisis actually is a school of development. You know, because each time you go through a series of crises, you go out there having learned so much, and you go out as a better person. So I would say that, you know, the reason why there is positives in what we call crisis is because in this school that God put us through, we come out victorious. We don't come out as losers, whether we live or whether we die, because, you know, para is there.
Absolutely. I think, Charlie, and you spoke to something that I think is super relevant, especially to Thomas's question. You know, crisis is anything you label it, right? So if you don't want to label it a crisis, don't label it a crisis. If you want to label it an opportunity, you label it an opportunity. You know, there's, you know, like Charlie said, crisis is a human term, right? We've defined, or we've said what determines what is a crisis and what isn't. But I think crises are all relative, right? Because what you may call a crisis, you know, I may not call a crisis, or what I may call a crisis, you may not call a crisis. I think it has to do with our experience. It has to do with the information that we have. It has to do with, you know, the principles that we've been using over the years, the application of those principles. So it doesn't have to be a crisis. I think what we're doing is just taking a societal term and just trying to bring some perspective to it, you know, to you, so that you can have a different outlook. And I really like that question, because you're challenging society's definition of the crisis, right? And because if we're saying opportunity is in the crisis, then it doesn't make sense for it to be a negative thing. And, you know, that's exactly why this forum is here. This is why we're having this conversation with you guys, because we want to challenge the things that you've been learning or been experiencing over the years. Ms. Bakhuis, go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to show this. I hope you can see it, right? In the Chinese, this is the word for crisis. Mm-hmm. This part is the danger and the risks, and the other part is opportunities. So this is the word for crisis. That means that crisis is a time of danger and risks, for truth, but it is also a time for opportunities. And that's why they use that word in one. The crisis, when they mention crisis, they understand that it is a time for opportunities. And no wonder what they're doing now. Because if you follow, they are overflooding the market now with new things and new inventions, and they will get up again. And if we stay, and just lamenting and thinking about the crisis without looking at the opportunities, we'll have to buy all that stuff again and really ask them for help. So we better take that word for serious, and that it is danger and risk, but also opportunities.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's take a few more questions. We have Tabello Sasini. Tabello says, Tabello is from Lesotho. During the time of crisis, some people automatically panic and allow themselves to be covered by the negative fare. They do not open their communication channels. How do we handle such people? Which words or approach can we opt for when coming to these types of individuals?
I couldn't hear. It was cutting on my side.
Okay, so they ask, During the time of crisis, some people automatically panic and allow themselves to be covered in the negative of fear. So the ITWLA was asking persons that are fearful or that are experiencing fear during crisis, how do you encourage them, or how do you approach them? How can you stir them in another direction as opposed to being fearful? How do you what approach can you take to encourage them to not be fearful in these times? I think this is a different perspective to the fear question that we had, but this is a bit more personal, and I think so. Dealing with maybe family members or friends or whatever, how do you encourage them or get them out of being fearful within these times?
I think we shouldn't be scared to reveal, who we are and what we believe in to other people. Case in point, I used to think, there was a time where I used to think that, well, there are certain questions which will be answered by the so-called fathers. Then I realized that I'm now turning 50, I'm that father. So I must take that responsibility to educate other people. So today we have so many ways you can speak to the nation without their permission. There's so many ways you can speak to the whole world without paying an arm and a leg. So I think when we need to take, when we see people who are distressed and people who are fearful, we need to share what makes us strong with them, because we should never assume that everybody knows what we know. So we who are on the other side of fear must help those who are on the other side of it, on the dark side of it, to come out to the light. So I would say that we are agents of change, and wherever we find ourselves, we need to help those who are less favorable or those who are maybe ignorant on a subject, because we have also learned that most of what we call fear is actually based on what people don't know, on the fear of the people. Absolutely. And obviously there was a lot of that. There was a fear around 5G. There was fear about, what do you call it again, vaccination. And there's a lot of fear in the air still. But I think when we get people, for example, people were afraid in my nation about vaccinations and the vaccines and stuff like that. So in my own private platform, in my own Facebook, I called one of my friends who's a scientist, and I asked him those questions. And in him answering those questions, as I asked him, which are questions that people are worried about, then I realized that there's so much that we worry so much because a lot we don't know. We don't even know what the process of developing a vaccine is around in the world. So that makes us feel that whatever lie we can hear, we can believe it just as it is because we don't know better. So when we know better, the onus is on us to share with those who might not be advantaged to truth.
Absolutely. Information is always key. So here's another question. April, I think this is for you. I think you spoke about this during your presentation. So Devani McCarthy asked, how do I begin to create an environment that is conducive to my growth and development and for the growth of others? I feel like there is so much power and potential on the inside, but I can't get a full grasp of myself. Surrounded by religiosity and people who think so small, how do I begin to create my own environment?
Well, actually, there is a bit of the answer in that question, as usually that's what happens. So the first thing I would say is to write down what you love, write down what you enjoy doing, write down your beliefs and your values. And then look for people who share similar values and beliefs, because part of it is really the cultivation, right? So we all have these seeds within us of giftings, ideas, But I think a lot of times the missing piece is that we don't have the proper environment and association that can help. Being on this forum today is really one of the great first steps that you took, because you can hear from all of us and all the things that are shared that there is potential in you to grow and to develop. But you need, we mentioned several books that are great resources. I know there's a YouTube channel for ITWLA, there's Munroe Global. Most of us on the panel have some type of social media. So it's also, when Charlie was talking about vaccinations, I think another word is called inoculation, is making sure that you're getting the right things into your mind, what you're hearing, right? So scripture tells us that we are to guard and protect our eyes and our ear gates. And so you may find from this seminar today, you're like, I need to change what I've been listening to, what I've been watching, and maybe some of the persons who are around you. So start to tap in. And again, those things that you love, those things you love doing, and what are your values? Some people also say you can write down the things that you hate, the things that upset you or that you don't like to see. Pastor Bakhuis spoke a little bit to that in some of the social things that are happening in our nations, but these are things that kind of help to germinate the seed that's within you. But again, getting those associations are going to be critical to get to the execution part. So I would say that you're on the right platform today. Write down those things that I shared. Connect with ITWLA, connect with, Munroe Global. Again, each of us on here today have, social media, and just watch and listen and change that circle.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think, again, we live in a world where we can all just be so connected. There's so much information, so much things that we can learn. I think the onus is on us to educate ourselves. Like Charlie said, we're in this. There's a lot of people that just don't know, right? They don't know any better. And, we're doing our best as an organization to provide information, but you have to go and search and seek that information for yourself as well, and seek understanding of that information. So the more you can, place yourselves in environments like this, these types of forums, conversing and communicating with, like-minded individuals, I think it'll create, you start to create your own environment. And I think you start to see the progress for sure. The next question, Ms. Bakhuis. So in your presentation, you spoke about the use of social media, and Gloria Mugarura, sorry. She asks if you can expand on the use of social media. Or what are the best ways that we can use social media, especially during these times, to be effective in bringing ourselves through this crisis period?
Yes, social media is just as it is called, social media. So it is, it has the capacity to reach lots of people at the same time. Just the media is like the television, the radio, but the social media is more global. We can use social media to keep in contact with each other, in relationship with each other. Like there is a simple social media tool. It is a social media tool called WhatsApp. I mean, if I am not on WhatsApp, I wouldn't know how to be in contact with people now. And it goes so fast and you need it. So the same thing, you have the Facebook. Facebook has good effects and some effects that are not good. But you, just as you choose your environment and you can be surrounded by people that you want to be surrounded by, the same thing, you choose your friends, or you accept the friends that you want to accept on Facebook. You can use Twitter and Instagram to post nice pictures with messages. And you can use all those media in a critical time, in times of crisis, to communicate with people. The government can use social media to communicate the situation of the crisis. What is the situation the crisis is in now? The face of the crisis. What is the faces? Like we are in the second wave of our coronavirus now. And every day you hear how many people, and you need to communicate to the people a kind of feeling of security for them not to be scared, and teach them how to deal with the situation. Teach them through social media how to deal with that. If the children are not in school, we should provide them with learning materials through social media. And as I said, not every child has internet access, and certainly not digital devices to use. So the government in this case should provide for those low-income families the possibility of internet and the possibility of these devices for the children to use, the parents along with the children. But that's why this crisis is costing us so much money. In our country, for instance, we have how do you call that? General healthcare for everybody, general healthcare. So we don't have that problem like some countries have. Everybody has the opportunity to be helped. I mean, and the health, if anything is wrong, healthy. But internet, not everybody has internet access. So the government now, in this case, should provide internet, and that costs a lot of money. So you're asking, why? Is it only because people are losing their jobs that there is such a big economic problem? Because all the hotels are closed? And no, it is because of the change, the social media, the virtual change. At the same time, the same good things that we use, at the same time, it is costly. So here is where the sharing and the equal opportunities for everybody is a big deal. Yes, that's what I would like to.
Okay, great. So we're going to do two more questions real quickly before we wrap up. So Samita Ferguson, she says, resources seems to be a vital area that prohibits persons from pursuing their dreams or ideas. How do you steer or encourage someone in this regard? So someone that doesn't have the resources, maybe the funding or the wherewithal or whatever to really pursue their dreams or the ideas that they have. How do you encourage someone in that regard?
I will use the same advice that was given to April by Dr. Munroe. Start where you are with what you have. That's the best place to start. I find that if you sit and wait, what life does is that life also becomes static, but when you start moving, that's when you meet your provision. So you won't be able to move to meet your provision if you're not moving and you're standing still. You got to start where you are, and all of us have something that we can do. All of us, and I'm glad that the person who asked this question is able to see a screen and is able to type. That's why that's why the message came, which basically means that with that, you already have something great to start with. When I met Dr. Myles Munroe as a teenager, I said to him that I would want to serve you, but obviously I didn't have money. I was still in school. And I said, I'm gonna serve you. I've got my hands and my eyes that sees. I've got my feet that runs. In any of that area you need me, I will run. So I mean, and the rest now is history, because I was willing to use my own hands and my eyes and my feet. So as long as you have hands and eyes and feet, even if you don't have legs, Steve showed us that you can still become something in life. So start where you are. Don't wait for resources. Resources are not going to come to you while you're doing nothing. The resources will come to you while you're moving. I've seen people who were not even promising. Even in my country, some of the people who are artists, and they were not coming up, in the public, and because they were shy that they didn't have what it takes to become, a celebrity or whatever. But they come as they were, and one person sees the gift and found the gift. And today we have got so many biographies which are written after people who had nothing, but who were willing to move with the little they have. So start where you are.
Absolutely.
I mean, since we're talking crisis, this time of a pandemic, obviously, I don't have a job. I'm not employed by government, who were paying other people, for sitting at home. So I said, and I said, what am I gonna do? And God gave me an idea to sell a herb, which had been used traditionally all across, the country, and but was not so, well known, and until Madagascar started using it, and Germany. And God showed me that I could, He sent me to a tree, and I had to go to the bush, find the tree, cut it, package it, go around selling. I had to put down my ego and pride and go to people's houses and, those who were in quarantine, and go and deliver the product. And that helped me to support my family during the pandemic. So wherever you are, whoever you are, as long as you have got these eyes and these hands and these brains and these legs, you can do something from wherever you are.
Absolutely. Start where you are with what you have. I think that's a principle we can use, throughout all parts of our lives, for sure. So we'll take one more question. So Theron Williams, he says, how can you begin to manage a crisis? Dr. Munroe says, start by evaluating your life. Then he lists several things one should do. And from his list, there appears to be a strong implication towards self-management. Start with self-inventory or assessment, and then maintaining one's position. The takeaway being, don't allow the crisis to reduce you as an individual. And Theron is asking if everyone would comment on it. So I'll just use this as a closer. I think this is a good place to close, right? Because I think Ms. Bakhuis brought it up in her presentation in discussing self-governance, right? Self-management. And I think the management of self, it prepares you for a crisis, and it allows you to manage your way through a crisis as well. So just share your thoughts on that. We'll use that as a closing period. So I'll give each of you 2 minutes to kind of just comment on that, and then just give your last closing remarks. So we'll start with April.
Wow, that's so good. Yes, start with what you have, where you are on your level. In the book that Myles mentioned, Think, Innovate, Create, I really go more into that with the different capitals, and Charlie kind of brought that out, that again, so many times we think that it starts with money, but it actually starts with an idea. And that idea causes us to move forward. Because even if you were to go to ask someone to work with you, they would first say, okay, what are you thinking? Then you would tell them. And then the second question they would ask is, well, what have you done? What sweat equity, we call it, right? Have you put into starting this business or this concept? For myself, it's allowed me to really focus on where we are and where I want to be. So I started a few years ago. I shared this just a quick minute in my presentation earlier. I don't know if you caught it. Is to invest in what God made. And although it was inconvenient at the time, and I certainly was not wanting to, I didn't see it. I have to say it this way. I didn't see it, but I remember hearing a message that Dr. Munroe shared out of Genesis 2, and the light bulb went out. Charlie, you may remember this. We were in Durban at a 7 a.m. breakfast. Who has a 7 a.m. breakfast? Or maybe no, it was Botswana. 7 a.m. breakfast with Dr. Munroe. Munroe was with us, and he started talking about Genesis 2. And I'd read it all the time, but it didn't come out to me. And so I asked him, I was like, well, how did you get to ownership at this level? And he says, well, you start getting the information and then you do what you can on your level. And that's really the key, even to self-governance, is knowing this is what I believe. I'm convicted by what the Word of God says. These are the things that I will do. The success is throughout all Scripture. I mean, Proverbs has become my daily read as to what's wise to do, what to avoid, what things to pay attention to. So I would encourage you, again, just like the previous question, is to begin to read and meditate on those things that are just, that are pure, that have a good report, that encourage you. Yes, we know tribulations will come, but remember when he said, and Charlie said this as well, keep a good attitude. So again, talking about the perspective, because if you have the wrong perspective to say, woe is me, why is this happening to me? You literally you inhibit the flow of ideas and creative resourcefulness that is innate within each and every one of us. And I know this may sound a bit, harsh, but, I've been in places and traveled where I saw these beautiful homes built with great materials, but then I saw other communities that took other resources to create a home. And so don't negate small beginnings, but keep focused, and great things are ahead. We can't wait to hear testimonies. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, Charlie, we'll actually, Ms. Bakhuis, we'll let the ladies go first. So just kind of respond to that statement of just self-governance and starting with yourself, and then you can give your closing remarks as well.
Yes, you should know who you are, why you have been created, for what reason, to serve who, where, to serve where. I firmly believe that every one of us, we have been created for a particular time, and that I, and you all, in this case, we live for a particular time. So if we are allowed to go through this crisis, for instance, we must have in us something that we can share with others. And sometimes in sharing, we create opportunities. And we have God-given gifts, talents, and abilities for a season. Like Queen Esther, was mentioned about her, that she existed for a particular time like that. So we all exist for a particular time. And so when we get our ideas and we dream our dreams and get visions, on things that we would like to do, just discuss them with our Creator, the one who created us, the one who put all those talents and gifts, and who even gives us dreams and visions. And then discuss them, have a personal relationship with Him through the Word, the reading of the Word, but also through personal relationship. When I was smaller, I didn't know that I could talk to God and hear Him talk back to me. So I thought that He only spoke to people from Israel. So when I realized that He is interested in people from the Caribbean and in me personally, oh no, I grabbed that opportunity. And so I would like to share that with you. Grab that opportunity. He is right there for all of us. The grave could not hold Him. He rose again after 3 days, and He is alive. God bless you.
Thank you, Ms. Bakhuis. And Charlie, I'll give you the last word. Please, your closing remarks.
I was born in a village, so crises have been a part of my life. I lived with goats, share same accommodation. We ate pap with, with salt and water. We were living in a series of crises. So I'm used to crisis. But I would like to say to you that remember, there's no one who can be you better than you. And do not doubt yourself. Keep that great attitude. Embrace diversity and embrace every idea that God gives you, because God is talking to you every day through ideas. If you can just implement what God tells you to do, then we will see a different person in you. And in every crisis, you will be successful. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. Thank you to my, my speakers. Thank you to this organization. Thank you guys for joining us wherever you are in the world. I hope that this forum, this session has been informative for you. You've learned something that you can apply to your life to either propel you through this crisis or to prepare you for one that is to come. Because crises are coming. It's the constant thing in life, right? We're all going to experience it. So thank you to my speakers again. I appreciate you guys for the valuable information that you've shared. If you want, again, more information about us, about this organization, you can email us at ITWLA@bfmm.com. That's ITWLA@bfmm.com. Thank you for joining us today. Once again, thanks to our speakers. Thanks for our trustees, our members, those of you who have been with us for our previous 2 forums. We have 1 forum left. It's going to come in 2 weeks. So 2 weeks from today will be our last and final forum on crisis management. And we hope to see you guys there. So until then, enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of this week. Be safe and look for the opportunities within this crisis and all crises that are to come. Thank you guys.